So, if the canary in the coal mine stops singing, the miners, well, they don't just sit around and wait.
No, absolutely not. They get out immediately.
Exactly, because they know instantly that the air is toxic. The environment has just become totally hostile to life. And if you want to know whether something is fundamentally wrong within you, you can actually use that exact same diagnostic tool.
Which is such a powerful metaphor, really.
Yeah, it is. You just have to ask yourself, have you lost your desire to sing? Like, if you find yourself constantly agitated or exhausted or just really defensive all the time, the air in your own mind might actually be toxic.
Right, which is exactly what we're getting into today.
Yes. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the silent poison of bitterness. And to be clear, we are not just talking about like a fleeting bad mood or a temporary grudge here.
No, this is much deeper than that.
Yeah, we are unpacking bitterness as this deeply rooted psychological and spiritual condition, one that can secretly poison our lives without us even realizing that we're infected.
And just to give you a roadmap of where we're pulling these insights from today, we're examining a really deeply reflective self-audit by an author named Starla. It was published on her blog, Sunday to Monday.
Right. And she documents this. It's a 21-day fasting and prayer journey, right?
Exactly. She uses these ancient scriptural texts to kind of map out exactly how bitterness takes hold in the human heart. And, she is writing from a very personal Christian perspective, but the framework she builds explores these entirely universal themes.
Yeah, themes that really apply to anyone.
Right. We are diving into human nature, the psychology of envy, and those really profound illusions we create just to protect ourselves.
And I think the fascinating part is that she didn't just sit down to write some dry academic treatise on human behavior.
No, not at all.
Like, this whole journey started because she was just feeling disconnected. She felt down, kind of out of sync, almost like a plant starved of sunlight,
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And in the process of sorting out her own heart, she hit on this realization that completely flips conventional wisdom upside down.
Oh, for sure. The idea that bitterness almost always masquerades as protection.
Right. And that concept of protection is it's the perfect entry point for this deep dive, because when someone hurts us, our immediate psychological reflex is to build a wall.
It's totally natural. The author looks at two distinct responses to pain. There's deliverance, which is the act of being set free and actually moving forward.
Okay.
And then there's protection, which is seeking shelter, setting up a defense, or, throwing up a shield.
But, setting up a shield feels incredibly logical, though. Like, if you touch a hot stove, you pull your hand back.
Right, it's self-preservation.
Yeah, if someone betrays you or slights you, putting on a heavy suit of emotional armor just feels like the smartest, safest move.
Yeah.
You're making sure nobody can ever take a swing at you again. So why does she argue that this deeply ingrained survival instinct is actually destructive?
Well, the problem arises when we make ourselves our own ultimate impenetrable defense mechanism. Seeking shelter isn't inherently bad, but the author noticed a pattern in her own life where she wasn't actually living anymore. She was just enduring.
Oh, wow. Just enduring.
Yeah, like she was just holding her breath to survive. And when she really listened to her internal monologue, she heard a very specific whisper driving all her actions. The whisper was, "I am not loved here."
Oh, man. That is a devastating sentence to internalize. I am not loved here.
It really is.
Once you believe that, every single interaction gets filtered through a lens of threat.
Exactly. And that perceived threat is what makes us strap on the armor in the first place. We choose the illusion of protection over the really difficult work of forgiveness or vulnerability.
Right. But that armor blinds us, doesn't it?
It does. We convince ourselves we're keeping the bad out, but the reality is we're just sealing the poison in. Bitterness doesn't act as a shield. It actually acts as an acid.
An acid. Wow.
Yeah. The text notes how it physically mars the face and breeds this cruel, irritable spirit. It's an illusion of safety that fundamentally isolates you from the very connection you were starving for in the first place.
I'm picturing like a little kid playing hide and seek, right? Covering their own eyes and thinking, well, because I can't see you, you can't see me.
Yes, exactly it.
We hold ourselves incredibly stiff, totally paralyzed inside this armor, completely convinced that we've outsmarted the world. So if bitterness is this false armor, we have to look at the catalyst. Like, what specific event makes us reach for that armor to begin with?
So the catalyst is almost universally a burning, really profound sense of unfairness.
Unfairness.
Yeah, it's the feeling of looking at your life and feeling like you've been fundamentally cheated.
Which brings up this brilliant psychological study that masquerades as an ancient parable in her sources. The author uses the story of the vineyard workers from the Gospel of Matthew to illustrate this exact trigger.
Right, it's such a classic text for this.
Yeah, so imagine you own a vineyard, right? Early in the morning, say 6 a.m., you hire a crew of workers to bring in the harvest, and you agree on a wage for the day one penny.
Yeah, the standard day's wage.
Right. Then around noon, you realize you need more help, so you hire more workers. At 3 p.m., you hire a few more. And finally, at 5 p.m., with just one single hour left in this grueling workday, you pull in a final group.
Just 1 hour of work.
Exactly. The day ends, it's time to settle up, and the vineyard owner hands every single worker the exact same wage. 1 penny.
So the guy who worked 12 hours in the blistering heat gets a penny.
Yeah.
And the guy who worked 60 minutes in the cool evening breeze gets a penny.
And anyone listening right now who has ever worked in a corporate environment is like immediately siding with the 6 a.m. crew.
Oh, 100%. It drives people crazy.
I mean, imagine working a 12-hour shift, pulling all the weight, sweating through your clothes, and the new guy who clocks in for the last hour of the day gets the exact same bonus check as you. It just feels like a massive injustice.
It does. It violates every modern sense of input versus output logic that we have.
Yeah, it absolutely violates the human ledger. We are so obsessed with keeping score.
We really are. But the text draws our attention to the vineyard owner's response when those all-day workers inevitably revolt, right? The owner looks at them and says, "Friend, I do you no wrong. Didn't you agree with me for this exact wage?"
Right, the contract was fulfilled.
Exactly. He says, "Is it not lawful for me to do what I want with my own money?" And then he drops this incredibly piercing psychological question. He asked, "Is your eye evil because I am good?"
Wait, is your eye evil? I mean, in a modern context, that sounds like a curse from a fantasy novel or something. We need to decode that phrase.
Yeah, it sounds intense. But the phrase evil eye here is actually a direct translation for envy. It literally means to cast an evil eye upon.
Oh, wow. Okay, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, so look at the situation from the vineyard owner's perspective. He hasn't cheated a single person. He fulfilled his exact contract with the 6 a.m. workers, paying them exactly what they asked for and agreed was fair.
Right.
Then, he simply chose to be radically generous with the 5 p.m. workers. But the 6 a.m. workers are entirely incapable of seeing that generosity.
Because they aren't looking at what they gained anymore. Their entire reality has been completely swallowed by what they perceive they lost relative to someone else.
Exactly. Their grievance wasn't, "You underpaid us." Their grievance was, "You made them equal to us."
Oh, that's so telling. They wanted their extra suffering to elevate them above the rest.
Right. And taking that a step further, the author connects this to another ancient passage that says, "The eye is the lamp of the body," which is just this profound exploration of how perspective dictates our reality.
So how does that work exactly?
Well, if your eye is single and clear, meaning your perspective is healthy, your body is full of light, you have the capacity to see grace, to recognize the blessings you have that you didn't necessarily earn, and to just appreciate the sheer luck of your own circumstances.
But if your eye is wicked or like darkened by comparison, the light just gets shut out.
Completely shut out. The only thing you can see is how everyone else is getting a better deal than you. You become hypervigilant, right? Just constantly scanning the room to see who is getting one over on you.
Yeah, that sounds exhausting.
It is. And the text links this directly to what master you're serving. Envy roots you deeply in the temporal world. It chains you to serving status, riches, and this really rigid obsession with worldly fairness.
Rather than serving a mindset of grace.
Exactly.
And that shift in perspective changes how we operate on a cellular level. Like when your primary lens becomes this evil eye of comparison, you stop looking inward at your own growth. You become so obsessed with everyone else's plate that you stop growing yourself.
Right. And he also uses a fantastic word for this state, witherance.
Withering. Yeah, that's central to diagnosing a bitter root, isn't it?
It really is. She brings in this analogy of the cursed fig tree.
Yeah.
So in the text, a tree is spotted from a distance, and it looks spectacular. It's lush, vibrant, covered in broad green leaves. It gives off the appearance of total health.
But then you get closer.
Right. Upon closer inspection, it is entirely devoid of fruit. It is all show and no substance.
And because it fails to produce fruit, it gets cursed to wither. Now, when I hear the word wither, I immediately think of like a houseplant that I forgot to water.
Oh, sure.
It just sort of passively dries up and gets
Right.
crispy, right? It loses its vitality because of harsh conditions.
But the author dug into the etymology of that word and found a much older, more aggressive definition. To wither doesn't just mean to dry up passively. It actually means to be contrary or to resist accountability.
Wow. Wait, to resist accountability, that changes the entire framing. Withering isn't something that just happens to you, it's something you actively do.
Exactly.
But
It's the part of human nature that digs its heels in. Withering is that internal voice that says, I refuse to change, I will not forgive, I am the victim here, and I am right. It's an active refusal to grow, but it's disguised as a natural consequence of your environment.
And here is where it gets deeply uncomfortable, right? Because human beings are smart. We know we're supposed to be producing fruit. We know society expects us to be growing, kind, patient people.
We know the rules of the game.
Yeah. So when our internal root is bitter and we are actively resisting growth, we start faking the harvest.
Right.
We create fake fruit.
I love that analogy, fake fruit.
It's like a bowl of beautiful, glossy wax fruit sitting on a dining room table. From across the room, you look like you have your whole life together. You look like the picture of health. But if anyone gets close enough to actually take a bite, they are going to break a tooth.
They really are. And the list the author provides is just an absolute masterclass in self-deception. We are incredibly skilled at rebranding toxic behaviors into virtues.
Yeah, we take the symptoms of our bitterness and dress them up in like modern therapy speak or rugged individualism.
Totally.
I have to admit, reading this list made me feel a little bit attacked because I've definitely used some of these excuses myself.
I think we all have, honestly.
Let's break down how we do this. The author starts with strife, which is basically the habit of causing constant conflict and friction. But we don't call it strife, do we?
No, we rebranded.
We say, I'm just telling it like it is. We pretend we're these brave truth tellers when really we just have a massive chip on our shoulder and want to pick a fight.
Exactly. And following that same thread, she highlights outbursts of anger. Now, in a healthy psychological state, an outburst of anger is recognized as a lack of emotional regulation.
Right, it's a failure to cope.
But when we're defending our bitter root, we excuse it. We call it being real or being authentic. We demand that people just handle our lack of control as a quirk of our passionate personality.
Yeah, if you can't handle me at my worst.
Right.
Or how about factions? We form cliques, we exclude people, we build these echo chambers where everyone just agrees with us and demonizes the outsider, but we don't admit we're creating division.
No, we glorify it.
We call them my ride or die, or my posse, or my tribe.
It's pure tribalism disguised as loyalty. The author also points out our behavior during disputes. When we engage in an argument, we might leave the other person completely devastated, but internally, we feel a twisted sense of pride because we won.
Oh, yeah. We flatter ourselves for having the gift of the gab.
Right. We think we're intellectually superior, completely ignoring the relational wreckage we just caused.
And finally, the big ones, jealousy and envy. We convince ourselves that our jealousy is just practical cautiousness. We say, hey, I'm just watching my own back.
And envy gets the best rebrand of all.
It really does. We call it ambition. We tell ourselves that tracking our neighbor's success is just the competitive fire we need to build our own empire.
And because we're so adept at crafting this wax fruit, bitterness becomes what the author terms a sleeper sin. It burrows down so deep into the soil of our psyche, masked by all these fake virtues that we don't even know we're infected.
But if you don't know you have the disease, you are never going to look for the cure. So we really have to strip away the wax fruit. If we pull back the curtain on the authenticity and the ambition, what are the actual psychological tells that you are harboring a bitter root?
Well, the author lays out 4 diagnostic signs. These are the uncontrollable physical and mental manifestations of the infection. And the first one is spinning.
Oh, man. Spinning. Everyone has experienced this. It's 2 a.m., you're staring at the ceiling, and your brain is obsessively looping a conversation from 3 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. Over and over.
You are analyzing the micro expressions, the tone of voice, the specific slight. You're trapped in this endless mental court case where you are the prosecutor, the judge, and the jury, and you simply cannot find the off switch.
It's exhausting. And the second symptom naturally follows the first, which is mouth issues. Ancient wisdom dictates that out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks.
So what does that look like?
Well, when bitterness takes root, your default setting becomes sharp. You become hypercritical, snappy with service workers, rude to your family, and you physically wear a disgruntled, tight expression on your face all day.
Wow. And the third symptom is the one that really grounds this in biology, right? Sickness.
Yes.
The author describes this as the physical toll of drinking the bile of your own bitterness. Your posture physically droops. You look exhausted. The stress cortisol literally floods your system.
It really does take a physical toll.
You can actually make yourself physically ill by white-knuckling resentments. You're holding a hot coal, expecting the other person to burn, but your own hand is the one blistering.
That's a great image. And the fourth symptom reveals how the infection spreads. It's what she calls the bitter bunch. Because bitterness is highly contagious.
The bitter bunch, like a terrible sequel to the Brady Bunch.
Exactly. If you are deeply bitter, you cannot contain it. You start bleeding it onto your spouse, your kids, your coworkers.
You subconscious recruit people to your misery.
Right. And soon enough, your entire social circle sounds like a frustrated, complaining mess.
So you have the 2 a.m. ceiling staring, the snappy mouth, the physical exhaustion, and the toxic friend group. But the text maps out a terrifying psychological progression here. This condition does not stay static.
No, it acts like a virus mutating. The author points to an ancient roadmap of psychological collapse found in the book of Ephesians. Bitterness travels in a very specific sequence. It starts as internal bitterness. But if you let it ferment, it heats up into wrathful anger.
And when sitting quietly in your anger doesn't get you the validation you crave, you escalate.
Exactly. You move to shouting and clamor. This is the demanding insistence that the world bend to your ledger. You start making noise, hoping intimidation's going to work.
But when the shouting fails...
When it fails, you delve into slander. You realize you need a coalition, so you start actively dismantling the reputation of the person you're frustrated with.
Right, you desperately look for outside validation to assure you that your armor is justified.
And if you follow that dark road all the way to the end, you hit the final stage. Malice.
Malice. That is a heavy, terrifying word.
It is. It's a literal desire to cause harm. It's the point where you don't just want to be right anymore. You want to see the complete destruction of the other person or the absolute death of the relationship.
And along every step of that progression, your joy is just entirely siphoned away, right? And your ability to produce genuine, life-giving fruit is permanently stunted.
Yes. And the real danger here is our own hubris. The text pulls a warning from the book of Deuteronomy about the danger of presumption.
What does presumption mean in this context?
It's the arrogant thought process that hears a warning like this and thinks, oh, I will have peace even though I follow the stubbornness of my own heart.
It's the belief that you are the singular exception to the rule of human psychology. Like you think you can harbor a toxic root, build an iron wall to keep everyone out, actively resist growth, and somehow still wake up one day to a peaceful, flourishing life.
Exactly. It is treating grace lightly. The warning is clear. Assuming you can manage the poison without it killing you only stores up wrath and leads to total isolation.
This brings us to the crucial turning point. If you are listening right now and you recognize the signs if you've been spinning at 2 a.m., if you realize the fruit in your bowl is actually made of wax, if you feel the suffocating heavy weight of the armor you put on to survive, how do you yank this root out of the soil before you reach malice?
Well, based on her self-audit, the author synthesizes her remedy into 3 hard, actionable steps. And the first is drawing a line in the sand. No bitterness allowed.
Just a hard stop.
You have to execute a hard stop. You can no longer justify your resentment. You have to stop complaining about the unfairness of the vineyard owner. You have to stop expecting the people who hurt you to come back and fix the situation, because they likely never will.
You cannot heal a wound if you insist on picking the scab every single day to prove how much you are bleeding.
That's incredibly true. The second step is to fast and pray. Now, in a broader psychological sense, this is an act of total surrender. It is acknowledging that you cannot strong-arm your way out of bitterness.
It requires actively petitioning for help, right? Sitting in stillness and asking for the root to be completely painfully yanked out.
Right. And the final piece of the remedy.
What is it?
The final step is to believe the gospel. The author points out that regardless of your status, whether you're a spiritual leader, a CEO, or someone just trying to keep their head above water, we are all operating in the same fragile human condition.
We all have a profound, desperate need for grace.
Exactly. The cure for the envy of the 6 a.m. vineyard workers is dropping the ledger. It's realizing that the ability to even work in the vineyard at all is a gift.
Dropping the ledger. Wow, that is the core of it. And that is what we want to leave you, the listener, with today. It's time to check your own eye. How are you viewing the world around you right now?
Such an important question to ask.
Are you looking through the darkened, zero-sum lens of what you feel you are owed? Are you constantly tracking who got the easier path, who got the unearned praise, who only worked for 1 hour while you sweat all day? Or are you capable of looking through the clear lens of what you have been freely given?
It really requires a brutal, relentless honesty with yourself,
Yeah.
you know, to notice when you are slipping into that dark light of comparison and actively choosing to step back into gratitude.
We've talked extensively today about bitterness acting as a false armor. It's a heavy shield we forge when the world makes us feel unloved or exposed.
Yeah.
But consider this as you move through your week. What if the very walls you built to protect yourself from the world are actually the exact bars of the cage keeping you trapped?
Oh, that's a chilling thought.
What if true safety isn't found in a hardened, bitter gut, but in having the terrifying courage to remain soft, to remain fruitful, to unbuckle the heavy armor and stand completely open to the light? It might be time to let go of the protection so you can finally breathe deep enough to find your song again.